Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be looking at Torah Memches and Chelek Beis. Torah Memches and Chelek Beis, obviously, when there's a gematria that spells out a word, it behooves us to pay attention to the connection between that idea inherent within the word and the Torah that Rebbe Nachman is describing. And here it's an easy one. Memches is the gematria of Moach. It's the letters of Moach, the mind of the individual, the site in which a person is capable of transforming their thoughts from difficulty into ease, from concealment into revelation. All of the hamtaka, all of the sweetening that Rebbe Nachman is going to be describing in this famous Torah, Memches and Tanyana, are going to be ways of thinking that help us break free from all of the manios, all of the preventions. Now, this Torah, Memches, is referred to as the Igeres HaKodesh, the holy letter that really Rebbe Nachman conveyed to each and every person, and each and every person who reads these words as if they're being spoken for the first time for us individually will be able to literally experience Tchias HaMesim Beruchnius as a result of reading these words that Rabbeinu put down. And so we're going to try and let the words speak for themselves as we've been trying to do, and we'll just point out if there's any elements that bear import. Okay, so Zak the Heilige Rebbe. Kishadam nichnas ba'avodas Hashem, azay haderach shem marin lo hisrachkus, v'nidbe lo shemarchi kenoisoi melamala. When a person enters into avodas Hashem, when a person begins to take upon themselves the decision to do a little bit more than what they feel they're capable of doing, of revealing that they're capable of more, so Rebbe Nachman describes that this is the general way in which things happen. Don't be surprised by the fact that this is going to happen, because this is just the typical way that it goes. When a person enters into avodas Hashem, azay haderech, the path that is shown to them, appears to be one of distancing. Not only distance that Hashem is far from me, but actively that I am being distanced and pushed away and pushed back as a result of my habits, my emotions, my thoughts, reality itself, other people. The moment I begin to try and do the next right thing, I'm going to feel the pushback, and it's going to seem like they are actively pushing me away. Who's they? They is the anonymous they, reality. Hashkacha in the world. Something is blocking me from moving forward. To the degree that it is within the person's imagination, it appears to be that they're actually pushing me away from Shemayim itself. Because if I know that my orientation is good, if I know that my motivation is good, and I make the decision to take a step in the right direction with holiness, the path should be open in front of me. But instead of the path being open in front of me, a person encounters all of the preventions imaginable, to the point that I have to imagine, well, this must be that they don't want my avodah in Shemayim. And God forbid, when a person feels that they don't want my avodah in Shemayim, that I'm not worthy enough to serve Hashem, so then a person is going to distance themselves even more. It's as if they are not allowing me to enter into the chambers of avodas Hashem whatsoever. Everything that I look at is pushing me away. My thoughts, my emotions, my experiences, my family, whoever it might be. Rak kulo hiskarvus. But Rabbi Nachman ends that kind of hypothesis, that havamina, very quickly, where he says that it was nidmelo shemarchikeno. So it appears in the person's imagination that they're being distanced. But be'emes, the truth, which is the opposite of imagination, can only be revealed by way of grappling with imagination, but ultimately it's the opposite of imagination. The truth of the matter is the opposite. All of the distance that I encounter is in truth a drawing close, is an orientation towards coming close. Now, obviously, this forces us to shatter our conception of what it means to be close or far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we assume that closeness is closeness and distance is distance. But if Rabbeinu is telling us that the sense of distance is in truth closeness, well, then we have to look at distance by way of closeness as well right now. All of the distance is in truth being drawn closer. And a person needs to strengthen themselves very, very much in order to not allow themselves to fall in their minds. The Iker Yerida is in Das. The Iker Chisaron is the result of Chisaron Hadas. The Iker reason for suffering is because the Das is not aligned properly to deal with what is happening in a person's life. When a person has Das, Kiroi, when a person's Das is Mechubar, it has the ability of connecting above and below, it's Mamtik all dinim. But when the Das is not oriented, when I can't pay attention, when I can't focus, when I can't pinpoint that innermost point of connectivity to Hashem, so then I'm going to fall in my mind. And therefore a person needs his chazkus. His chazkus is making myself stronger than I actually am, strengthening myself, putting on armor. building myself back up again as if I have the capacity. It's not only that I have to make myself strong, I have to make myself very, very strong. Ma'od, ma'od. This doubled ma'od we've spoken about before. Rebbe Nachman also describes it in Gesher Tsar, ma'od, ma'od. The ma'od is doubled. Ma'od, like tov ma'od, is where we take tov and we magnify the potential of tov by revealing that it has the capacity of revealing itself by way of its opposite. That's what the word ma'od means. It's the pushback that reveals the thing that it's pushing back against, that forces it to reveal with even more intensity. Like the darkness that admits to the light allows the light to reflect itself in an even deeper way. So ma'od is a prevention, and then overcoming it and overcoming that prevention reveals how profoundly powerful the desire to overcome is. So it's not only ma'od, but it's ma'od ma'od. It's also the secret of ma'od ma'od have shafal ruach, and it's also the secret of tova haaretz ma'od ma'od, the ma'od ma'od of Eretz Yisrael, and the ma'od ma'od of Anava, and the ma'od ma'od of the chizuk of the das, and the ma'od ma'od of the gesher tsar ma'od ma'od. They're all gezerah shavos. They're all connected to one another, and they're all part and parcel of the same principle, that in the beginning it will appear that we are being thrown out, and our job is not to listen. Not to listen, not to give in to that sense that I'm being pushed away, but rather to see Hashem is drawing me close. And when it appears in front of a person's eyes that they spend days and years working on themselves, that a person is putting in the efforts that they're capable of putting in accordance with their situatedness, in accordance with who they are, but nevertheless, when I actually take an accounting of where I stand in the face of my perception with my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's distant from me. As the Heilige Rav Simcha Bunim says, that the Indian of Rosh Hashanah is Meirachok Hashem Nirali. That is a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to us from a distance. It's not that he's far. It's that the notion of Hashem being at a distance is the way that we connect to Hashem in that moment. V'lo hitchil klal lichanus lashari kedusha. And it appears to the individual that in spite of all of the efforts, in spite of all of the trying and the getting up again and the overcoming the shame and the stopping the negative cycle and the dropping the rock and picking ourselves up over and over, it appears that I have not even entered into the very basic starting point, the gates of holiness. Kiroa atzmo shehu male adayin avius v'gashmius v'hiruhurim u'bilbulim gedolim. Why? What's my proof that I haven't even entered into the gates of holiness? Because when I look at myself, I'm filled with a thickness, I'm filled with a physicality, a tendency towards the ground, v'gashmius, and I am in my material-like state, where all I'm focusing on is the egocentric drives of the self rather than the soul. The hiruhurim, and my thoughts are running around without any direction. V'bilbulim gedolim, and my mind is distracted and confused. That's my proof. And any little bit that a person wants to do in avodas Hashem, some element of holiness, some inclusion of holiness in my life, ein manichano. So it seems that the world at large is preventing me, that the circumstances of my inner and my outer life are preventing me from properly connecting to you, Hashem. And it appears to the person, in accordance with their imagination's eye, that it is as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not looking at them whatsoever, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not have a relationship with that individual. As if HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not desire our avodah. The result is because that I spend so much time screaming out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in accordance with the limited mindset that I'm capable of doing it over and over, and I yearn for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save me. And I ask of the Rebbe Nachman, Hashem, I'm not asking for anything but help in avodah. I want to serve you. And nevertheless, and it's a double distance. Rachok ma'od ma'od, have ma'od ma'od shafal ruach, gesher tsar ma'od ma'od, tov haaretz ma'od ma'od, his chaskas gadol ma'od ma'od, that doubled ma'od. Al kenin maloi ki'ilu ein Hashem yisparach mistakle alav klal ve'ein poina alav klal. And at that point, it begins to appear to the individual that God has averted his eyes from me, so to speak, that I'm no longer in the grace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kavyachol, and his eyes of hashkach are not looking down on me, and I'm left alone in the midbar, and it's the secret of keli lama azaftani, the sense of forlornness, ve'ein poina alav klal, and a person feels abandoned by the Rebbe Nachman. Rahman al-Litzlan, abandonment is one of the motivating forces behind any of the struggles we find ourselves in. Fear of forgetfulness, fear of not being remembered, fear of not being permanent within the eyes of those we want to be permanent in their eyes of, that we want to be built into the heart of the tzaddik, into the heart of our loved ones. But nevertheless, a person who feels that they're going to be forgotten, if they come to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has forgotten them, then lo aleinu, that's going to leave a person with no ability to pick themselves up back in until they realize that Hashem is always there. Kihu yisparach ein rotza bo klal, because what it fundamentally appears to a person in these moments is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want me whatsoever. Hein al kol eila ukiyoytze bazeh. When it comes to all of this and any other thinking like this, Zok the Heilige Rebbe, Zok Rebbe Nachman, Tzarich his chazkus gadol. A person needs to strengthen themselves intensely. A person has to close their mind off to what they're feeling, and they just have to push forward in spite of all of the sense of distance. They have to break on through to the other side. They have to come to recognize that the distance is closeness, and that any sense of closeness is in truth an element of distance, and we have to fight to break through the concealment of our lives, to push forward, to come to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'chazek atzmoi ma'od ma'od. Again, ma'od ma'od. A person has to strengthen themselves over and over. Afile b'mudei d'shtusa. Even if I know I'm tricking myself to think that I'm worthy of holiness, I have to break through all of the preventions. I have to have a chizuk when it says asur lehit ya'ish, and then even when I'm over that isser of asur lehit ya'ish, I have to have a doubled chizuk, which is that ein shem ya'ish b'olam klal, and to remember I'm always in the good graces of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ubli lehistakel al kol zeh klal. He's not saying think differently. He's not saying don't pay attention to the manios. He's saying ignore them completely. Lechatchila ariber, jump beyond them, break through them, to come to realize that they are not real. They are mirages that mimic reality. They make us feel that we're distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, simply so that we can break through them, overcome our limitations, and reveal that in fact Karofu l'chol korav, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close to all those who call out to him. The chol asher yikru be'emes, everything he be'emes, because in truth, in the truth of the truth, when I learn to avert my eyes from the concealment and not pay attention to the concealment that they're throwing at me from this world, not to pay attention to the way things are going outside, not to pay attention to what my emotions are telling me, but to pay attention to the task at hand, to the shlichus at hand, b'li istakel al kol zeh klal, because in emes, in truth, kol ha'esrachus urak kulo hiskarvos, all elements of distance from Shemayim are in truth ways of coming closer, because when I realize that I'm close, even though there's an element of distance, then oh my goodness, I'm so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that even when I'm rachok, I'm close to him. It's a derech rechoika. B'chol hanal, says Rabbeinu, and all of this, how do I know? Why does Rabbeinu have the confidence to give this to us? Especially this Torah, one that is telling us over and over that all of the distance, all of the concealment is nothing. It's meant to be broken through. Rabbeinu says in Chaim Moharan, he says, you want to know why everything is so difficult for me? You want to know why every element of Avodas Hashem brings with it 1,000 years of minios that I have to break through? He says, because I'm paving forests for you. And he says, why are you afraid? I walked before you. The tzadikim walked before us. They paved the road. It's up to us now just to believe in their words. The tzadikim did the heavy lifting. It's up to us to believe in their words right now. The kol hanal, says Rebbe Nachman, all of this concealment, all of this hiddenness, all of this forlornness, all of this low self-esteem and the self-denial of value, etc., avar al kol hatzadikim. It went through the mind of all of the tzadikim. There's no notion of a tzadik who hasn't gone through these processes, because the tzadikim are like every other person. They go through ha'olam ad ha'olam. They have to go through all of the experiences, and it's specifically through the sheva yipol hatzadik that the tzadik falls 7 times, that he becomes the tzadik. It's not that in spite of falling 7 times he still stands up, but bedafka, because of the 7 times of falling, that's the secret of that he's the tzaddik, that the tzaddik is able to overcome the concealment. All of the tzaddikim went through this. Kasher shamanu mipiyam befeirush, as we heard mefurash from the mouths of the tzaddikim, shenidme lahem shahashem yisbarach ein mistakel v'poina aleim klal, that it appears to them that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is literally not looking at them or paying any attention to them whatsoever. Machma shara'u shezman rav sheim mevakshim v'yigeim v'oisim v'oidim v'avodas Hashem yisbarach, because they've seen that it's been so long that they've been trying and yearning and putting in the effort and performing and doing the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'adayin hein rechoikim ma'od ma'od, and they still feel profoundly far. Rachok mimeni menachem eshev nashi, we can have every single thing that we think we need in terms of spirituality, but if I don't have the Yishuv Adas, then it's still rachok. And had these tzadikim not strengthened themselves with intensity and ignored the reality of what they were feeling or what they felt the world was showing them, they would have left and remained in their original space, and they would not have merited to merit what they merited, meaning to say that the tzaddik themselves are the ones who understand the secret of breaking on through to the other side. And therefore, when we encounter the responsibility of doing it, we're in truth living like the tzaddikim, the need to break through every tzimtzum, every moment of concealment, and to realize that the tzimtzum is just HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing himself and beckoning me to come into the palace of Paro, to come to realize that he exists there as well, because that's the Chiba Yasera. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us so much, he wants to reveal the true secrets to us, which is that he's everywhere, even in the Miniya itself, and the secret of Moshe Nigash Ela Afel Kishamu Elokim. Moshe goes up into the cloud, into the concealment, because that's the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be found. Listen to this lashon. Every single word here is ba'amish tchiyas hamesim. V'haklal, and the general principle. Ahuvi, my beloved. Achi, my brother. Chazak ve'ametz ma'od. Strengthen yourself and cultivate profound courage. Face it, face the difficulty, face the concealment. And gird yourself with all of your strength, every aspect of yourself, to maintain your position in Avodas Hashem, to not let go, to not fall down as a result of the mnios. And do not feel and do not pay attention whatsoever to all of the yuridos and to all of the concealment and to all of the distance. And if you're in truth very, very far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it appears to you that in each and every moment you're blemishing more and more in the face of your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, falling more and more, breaking more and more things. Im kol zeh, nevertheless, keneged zeh teda. A person has to answer this das with another das. What's the das? She'ish kazeh. This person, ish is Rosh Tevos ein shem yeyosh. Ish kazeh shehu megusham kol kach. This person who's so thickened in their physicality, so stuck in their hopelessness, so broken in their passive-aggressive systems of destruction, etc., etc., etc. And ish kazeh, this person, shehu megusham kol kach, kol tenua v'tnua shehu menatek atzmoi ma'at ma'at min gashmiyuto upona laHashem yisparach hu gedoyla v'yekara. Every movement, each and every movement, called tnua v'tnua, shehu menatek atzmo, in which a person disconnects themselves from the physicality, from the stuckness, from the addiction, from whatever it is that's the self-destructive patterns of behavior, thinking, or feeling that's holding us down, even a little bit, ma'at migash miyuso, a little bit from my situatedness, from my stuckness, from my negative thinking patterns, upoina laHashem yisparach, and I turn myself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I make a gesture, I pivot, and I return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and instead of paying attention to the Yeyoshkeit, at that moment, it is going to be seen with eyes of wonder by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He gedoyla v'yekara ma'od ma'od. Ma'od ma'od, again the doubled ma'od. It is so precious in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Va'afilu nekuda ketana ma'od, and even if it is an imperceptible step in the right direction, the measure of spiritual growth has absolutely nothing to do with what we think is going to bring joy to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is the Mesiras Nefesh that each and every person puts in to be menatek themselves from whatever it is that's holding them down, the sadness, the despondency, the hopelessness, etc., etc., etc. Any step that I take to extricate myself from that place, to pull myself out and feel a little bit better with the light of Amunah, is going to be beautified in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Even the smallest drop, even some imperceptible point, in which a person disconnects themselves and detaches themselves from the unhealthy attachment and directs themselves towards the healthy attachment towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who rats bazeh kama v'kama alpayim parsaus ba'ilamis elyonim. The individual is running miles and miles and miles in the ascendant worlds, even though it looks like a tiny drop down here. Ka'asher tavin heitiv min ha'maisa shel hatzad, as well understands from the secret of the tzaddik, where sadness grabbed him and he fell into a state of despondency, kemuva etzleinu, as is explained by us. A person is going to find tremendous amounts of joy, and a person is going to uncover the secret of perpetual joy, because if joy is no longer dependent on a feeling of closeness or distance, and I have to be miskaber in times of distance specifically, so then I can have joy in times of distance as well, and I could be mahapich the atzvus into simcha, because ha'atzvus mazik ma'oid ma'oid, again, ma'oid ma'oid, that sadness destroys in a double nature. Now, Rebbe Nachman is hinting to, we'll pause here for a second, Rebbe Nachman is hinting to the fact that we've heard about this from other tzadikim, as is known by us. So there's a maisa at the end of Sipurei Maisios, and it's told about Oso HaTzadik, it's told about a tzaddik, there's certain shmuos that it was speaking about Rav Meir Mipramishlan, But the Maisa goes as follows, that there was a tzaddik who woke up in the morning and he just couldn't do it. There was nothing. There was nothing getting him out of bed. There was nothing compelling him to get to that next stage in Avoda. There was a limit that was set in front of this individual, this tzaddik in their mind, that was unpassable. It was unbreakable, and this person was going to remain in their beds, ki'ilu, and not get up to face avoda, and then fall to wherever the fall would go. And it was impossible for this person to spark something. It was impossible for this person to wake themselves up, until slowly but surely he came to realize that even though I have nothing of my own, at least I'm not a Jew. Shelo asani goy. When we say Shalom Asani, it's not that, I'm a Jew and every other nation is terrible. That might be true as well, but what it means is that just when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I can't say what he is because he's so infinite, so I can only say what he isn't. Ein lo de musaguf, what's referred to as hasaga b'derech shlila. I can only grasp you, Hashem, by way of negation, because to define you is to limit you. So too with a Jew. I can't say what it means to be a Yid. I can't describe what it means to have Nishmas Yisrael. But I can tell you that I know at least that I'm not a Yid. At least I'm not a Goy. At least I have Nishmas Yisrael. I can't tell you what it means. I can tell you what it feels like. I could describe what it means to be a Yid, but I can't define what it is. And once he came to this place of Shelo Asani Goy, he started kind of jumping a little bit and moving slowly but surely out of his bed, and then he walked out of the house and he began to move a little bit, and then suddenly this tzaddik gets swept up in kind of this whirlwind and he gets thrown into the air. Again, it's a vision, and he's moving and he's wandering and he's flying through the celestial worlds. He's flying through Atzilus and going up to the higher realms, and he's wondering, he says, this is a pretty tremendous aliyah for my neshama, and there's a self-consciousness, and this tzaddik is floating through the worlds based on this tiny gesture, and he begins to wonder. He says, I'm going very, very far from my home. I'm going to new levels, and I'm not sure how I'm going to land. And suddenly, as his experience begins to kind of sputter into an end, he finds himself coming back down, and he wonders, he says, how am I going to function? I'm going to have no idea how to find myself again, because I just traveled millions and millions of miles of spiritual growth, and I'm not going to be able to handle the traumatic fall back down to the ground when I realize how far I am from who I thought I was. And he comes back down to the ground, and to his wonder, Rebbe Nachman says, to his amazement, he had not moved even an inch. And then upon further examination, he had seen that he had moved a hair's breadth. And that's this story, that it was a hair's breadth. It was the hair's breadth of a movement. It was simply the desire to be menateket atzmi, to disconnect and detach myself from the attachments. And in that gesture, I fly and I run through all of the oilamos. I throw myself from the malchus shabamalchus, like the Evan Masu Habanim, and it's in the slingshot of David Malka Mashiach, and it's shot up with the kitra, and it goes up like the zarka. It goes all the way up to the highest place imaginable, because the rebound that takes place when something falls very deep is that it's going to bounce back up with intensity. Vida, says Rebbe Nachman, that immediately, we began before saying this is how it appears, but Rebbe Nachman is now saying this is the reality, this is the spiritual fact, this is what will take place. Immediately when a person wants to serve Hashem, at that point I cannot let go. Once I make the decision to enter into Das, once I make the decision to enter into Avodas Hashem, I am not allowed to give myself over to sadness. I am not in control of what the initial emotions that emerge within me are. This is not diagnostic in the sense of a pathological experience of emotional discrepancy, but we're talking about sadness. Depression is not sadness. Depression is lack of vitality. The opposite of depression is not joy, it's vitality, it's the capacity to do something. When it comes to sadness, it's a mode of thinking about oneself in relationship to their higher power, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, specifically in relationship to our shame and our feeling of stuckness. And a point when a person wants to enter into Avodas Hashem, that shame has absolutely no place. As the Heilige Beis Aaron of Karlin said, that Atzvus might not be an Avera, but it is certainly far more destructive than any of the Averos, because when I'm be'etzev, when I fall into a sadness and a shame-induced sadness, not the tzabrachenkite and the merirus that is healthy in bringing me to tshuva and recognizing my distance from Hashem, but a sadness that's the secret of lethargy and self-loathing that enables me to remain stuck in my stuckness, that is no longer an option for the individual. Chas v'shalom, ki atzvus hu sitra achra. Once I enter into Kedusha, sadness has to be seen as the opposite side. Rabbi Nachman demanded simcha. He outlawed sadness, not because it wasn't a natural human emotion, but because of how profoundly destructive it was when seen through the lens of toxic shame, etc. That type of deliberate sadness, of the shame-inducing stuckness that enables me to be stuck in my patterns because I don't have the ability to change, and therefore I get to remain wherever I am. That type of sadness is despised. A person has to be a profound, stubborn individual when it comes to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person has to be stubborn. A person has to push and push and push against the grain. A person has to continuously push against every sense of self that says you're not good enough, or I'm incapable, or I can't. We have to learn from the Yetzer Hara. I forgot where I saw it this Shabbos, an amazing teaching. Maybe it's from the Baal HaSulam. I Pashut don't remember. That we have to learn from the Yetzer Hara, in the sense that the Yetzer Hara, when the Yetzer Hara is kofetz on us, we have to learn from the Yetzer Hara's Mesiras Nefesh and say, okay, the Yetzer Hara is continuously engaged in its battle against me. I have to be as much of an action. Akshanis de Kedusha, as is the Kedusha. The brazenness of holiness means that I am not dealing with my negative traits right now. I am not looking at the things that broke me down yesterday. I'm not looking at the hurts and the cuts from a week ago. I'm not paying attention to that. Let me pay attention to that when it's a good time. But right now, when I want to serve Hashem, I am not acknowledging the fact that I struggle in other areas of my life. I am not allowing myself to be broken. I am not allowing myself to resolve that I will never be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather I have to knock my head against the wall until the wall breaks open, until the mania, until the concealment is revealed to be the Pesach into the Shari Kedusha. A person has to be an akshan. A person has to have a stubbornness. A person has to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am not leaving here ever. Even if you tell me to leave, I'm not leaving. Chol masha abal bayis omer Tishma lo chutz meitzei. A person has to learn to listen to everything the Balabayas says. The Balabayas is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, except if he tells us to leave, except if he tells us to do something that's going to take us away from our sense of closeness to him. So if acknowledging my yesh is going to take me far from Hashem, that I don't have to listen to it. I'm ignoring it. I'm an action. I'm going to remain in my place. I'm not moving. The very little bit, the nekuda tova of the avodah that I've started, even if difficulty comes and knocks me down again, I am not letting go of the spiritual gains, because we've spoken about already how spiritual gains don't go away. A person has to remember this very, very well. A person will need this. It will come in hand very, very importantly. Anytime a person begins again, which is every day, every time a person tries to enter into the gates of Kedusha, they are going to encounter this concealment, and we have to remember that we ate from the tainted wheat. We have to remember that this insanity is going to come. A person has to be very, very stubborn and brazen, to be strong with courage, to believe enough in the neshama to know that there's absolutely nothing that I can do that will take me away from the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To hold myself, to grab myself, to firmly plant my feet into the ground and not give way to any of the despondency or the hopelessness that seems to want to swallow me up. Even if reality knocks me down, even if everything knocks me down, the whole palm, what do I care? What do I care about what the outcome of my avodah is? I have to do my avodah. As Rabbeinu says, that lamaha mashal doma, they have a king who tells his servants that they have to go and collect water into the barrels each and every day. And all of the servants realize that there's holes in the bottom of the barrels, and the water that they were bringing back was going to be empty, so they stopped doing it. But the Chacham said, what do I care if there's water in the barrel or not? My avodah is not to make sure that there's water in the barrel. My avodah is to fill up the barrel and walk back with the barrel filled. And if it empties out again, then I'll walk back and I'll fill it again. And who's to say that that's what the king wants? Who says that the king wants full vessels? Maybe the king wants my broken vessels. Maybe the king wants me to continuously try and put back together my broken vessel. Maybe that's where the Nachas Ruach is going to come from. Maybe that's what the world needs in order to enter into a state of Mashiach. Maybe it needs 1 ounce of my effort again, as Rabbeinu says, that very often it appears to a person that they're not going to make it after all of the effort that they've put in, and that's when they turn around and they give up. And Rabbeinu says, imagine a person who has climbed 1,000,000 steps to come to the gates of a palace, and they have their hand on the handle, and prior to bending the handle, they say, you know what, I'm done. I can't do it. Rabbeinu says that a person has to always focus on Yeyush from that perspective, that I'm always right at the gate. I'm always right at the gate. I'm always about to enter in. I'm always right next to the gate. The Pesach is right there. And all a person has to do is hold on just a little bit more. Chagi kematrega. A person has to wait just a little bit more to taste the matzah and the suda that follows the maror and the difficulty. A person has to ensure that nothing is going to knock me down. I'll need this. Even though I'm being knocked down, chas v'shalom b'chol pam. Ki lepa'amim yesh, Because very often, what do I know about spiritual closeness or distance? Very often, mapilim echad me avodaso yisbarach, that they knock a person down from their avoda. A person doesn't have hatzlacha in something. Ki adua afal pikin alav lasos hashelo. It's responsible on that person to do what they need to do. Each and every person has the responsibility. My question is not what do I feel or what's the outcome. My question is what am I responsible to do? What is the avoda I need to do? And if I've fallen and I still feel sad, then I'll push myself up to find joy again and again and again. La'asos ma sheyuchol ba'avodas Hashem, to do the little bit that I'm capable of doing in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Va'al yaniach atzmo lipo legamre, and not to give in to that all too human natural tendency that when I struggle, I want to let myself fall completely, because when I fall completely, then I lose the responsibility of having to hold on. So very often we are our own worst enemies, and I say I can't do it, and then I let go because I assume I can't do it, and then when I can't do it, I fall and I break, and I say, oh, I knew all along I couldn't do it. But no, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Shtuyot, every person can do it. Every Yid has the capacity to not let go of themselves and to not let go of their ma'amad, chas v'shalom. Ki kol elu hanafilos v'hayiridos v'habilbulim, all of the descents and the falls and the getting stuck and the confusion, kiyotze bazeh, all of them are necessary. Tzrichim behechrich la'avor bahem koidem shenichnasim b'shari kedusha. This is the way it goes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created darkness before light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Rishayim before Tzadikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses Golus before Geula, Melchama before Shalom, difficulty before ease. Not only the tzaddikim, that tzaddikim ha'amitim. Moshe Rabbeinu, every single tzaddik. Adam Arishon, every single tzaddik goes through this. Vida, and a person has to know intuitively. A person cannot ignore that they know this truth already. Like we said, there's an individual who already, after all of the yagia and the struggle, is standing at the gateway of kedusha. But because of the confusion and because I feel that I'm not doing okay, I'm going to turn around. Or at that point, or when a person is at the gate, at that point the Yetzer Hara grows, Rahman al, which is a good simon. If the Yetzer is firing up, it means that I'm at the point of kedusha. There's a kedusha that's right there for me to receive. That the Yetzer is miskaber because it knows it's about to die, Rahman al-Itzlan, and it prevents me from entering into the Pesach, it prevents me from being mavata myself and entering into that place. And because I'm afraid to walk in, because I feel like the Sitra Achar is blocking me from entering in, I turn back around and go back to my old ways. This is the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has allowed concealment to operate until the coming of Mashiach, that when it appears that a person is very, very close to entering into the gates of Kedusha, and as if a person is about to enter in, at that point the Yetzer is miskaber on the individual, and Yeush falls into the picture, and ingenuity falls into the picture, and senses of inauthenticity, and all of the things that break us down, that gets stronger, Rahman al-Itzlan. Al-Kain Sarach as his chaskas gadol kenegdo. Therefore, a person has to gird themselves with strength. Listen to what Rabbeinu was saying. He's saying, this is how it's going to be. You can be surprised by this, or you can know from the get-go that this is how it's going to be, and you can cultivate the spiritual tools necessary to face this reality that is going to be. We are going to face distance. We are going to face moments of forlornness. That is the way that it is meant to be. It is not just us. It is not just a symptom. It is not a kink in the machine. It is a feature. It is the very fundamental nature of being a human being who is not a malach. It's a secret of Vayelech, which is that we walk rather than standing like malachim. We get up and we fall. We get up and we fall. The secret of the Zohar Kadosh is completely about this nakuda, that only human beings can get up and fall. And if we know about it from the beginning, then we can prepare ourselves properly. Then we can strengthen ourselves so that we're not going to be surprised. More often than not, the traumas of spiritual failure and the traumas of psychological letdown are there because I allow myself to be surprised by it, and I'm unprepared because I'm surprised by it. But if I do a little bit of planning and I overcome the basic desire to do whatever it is that my body wants me to do, and I gird myself with the certain capacity of gevura and being kovesh my yetzer and overcoming the desire of immediate gratification, so then there's really nothing that I can't overcome. V'shamanu mitzadik amiti sha'amar. And we heard from a true tzaddik, and the Masorah is that this is Rabbeinu talking about himself. She'ilu haya oimer loy echad. That had he merited to have a person telling him exactly what the tzaddik is telling us now, whoever it was, even if it wasn't a tzaddik, if he knew this secret at the beginning of his avodas Hashem, If someone had stopped him and said, Achi, my brother, I want to tell you something. Chazak ve'echoz atzmecha. Just ensure to strengthen yourself and hold on to yourself. If someone had warned me, I would have ran, and reached the loftiest levels of avodah. Kigam alav avar kol anal, because this tzaddik went through everything as well, revealing that it's not just a failure; it's part of the nature of being human. We're imperfect. V'lo haya shomei shum hischaskus mishum adam, but he didn't hear anybody offer this to him. He intuited it. Al kein misha roitz lichanis ba'avodas Hashem. Somebody who wants to enter in, anybody who wants to enter into the gates of avodas Hashem, yizkor zos heitiv, has to have this burnt into their memory. Not after the person falls, we say, oh yeah, we forgot to tell you, you fall. We say before the person is on the path, here's what you need to do when you fall. As Rebbe Nachman says in the beginning of the story of the seven beggars, there was a king who wanted to give kingship over to his son in his lifetime. And he said, it's on one condition, that when you fall from Malchus, you maintain your happiness. If you can maintain your happiness when you lose your ability to be king, then I'll be happy because you're worthy of being king. And if you can't, then I'll also be happy because you're clearly unworthy of being king. Meaning to say, the secret of Malchus, the secret of Rosh Hashanah, the secret of Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim is the ability to maintain joy even when we fall away from our Malchus, even when things fall apart, even when the center cannot hold, even when we fall down. It's okay. We pick ourselves back up. We fix what needs to be fixed, and we recognize that we're still okay. We remember our Nekudos Tovos, and we get up again. When Adam Arishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and said, Adam, did you eat? And he says, not only did I eat, but I'm going to eat again. It's not brazen, it's akshanas. I'm a human being. This is what I do. You created me this way, Rabbanu Shloim. What do you expect from me? And so we have to remember this very well. V'chazak atzmecha ma'od. Person has to ensure that they strengthen themselves very much. And do what you're capable of doing in accordance with your capacity, and don't look at anybody else, but just do what you need to do in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with the days and the years, this is not just what might happen, this is what is going to happen. A person can trust that with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they are going to enter into the gates of Kedusha, into the gates of Emunah. Because in truth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is filled with mercy and compassion, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants our avodah every moment. There is nobody like us who has the capacity of giving the avodah to Hashem that we can give. Each and every person is a singular fingerprint of spiritual DNA that has the capacity of being megala, a deeper yichud than anybody else in the history before them. That's the truth for each and every yid. Vida, and a person has to know. Shekol hatnuos v'ha'atakot sha'atan nitak v'ne'etak b'chol pam eze me'at min gashmiyut la'avidos yisbarach. And you should know that this is not just a one-time thing, but rather it's each and every time, each and every step that a person takes, they gather together sequentially to create the secret of growth that builds upon previous stages of growth, even though the previous stage of growth didn't reach where it needed to go. Shekol hatnuos v'ha'atakos, all of the movements, all of the attempts to disconnect myself, to detach myself, sha'atan nitak v'ne'etak, that I detached myself and continued to try and detach myself, b'chol pam eze me'at min gashmiyut la'avodas yisbarach, just a little bit from my physicality and the dross of myself in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kulam mitkabsim umitzchabrim umiskashrim uboim le'ezrascha ke'es hatzarich. All of those moments are written in the fabric of reality in my soul, and they do not go away. They are waiting there to be collected in the secret of the kibbutz, which is the secret of Rosh Hashanah, the iskabsus hadas, collecting all of the nekudos tovos to bring them out into that particular place that is going to give me help from beyond myself in the moments that I need it. They all come together to help me. When I'm encountering difficulty, all of those moments of difficulty that I was able to overcome are going to come together to help me in a situation that's difficult. Chas v'shalom. V'da, and a person has to know, Adam sarich la'avor al gesher tsar me'od v'haklal v'ha'ikar shalo yispachid klal. That we have to know that a person has to go through a very, very narrow bridge in this world, and that the most significant principle is not to allow myself to become afraid, because the bridge is seemingly carrying me from a place of distance to a place of closeness, and therefore I feel very afraid about falling off, because distance is not closeness, and I need to cross over the bridge in order to get the closeness. But the real secret is that distance and closeness are both parts of closeness, and therefore there's nothing to be afraid of. Even if I fall off the bridge, wherever I am, I'm still in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands. There's nothing to be afraid of. I just can't be stuck in the fear, because that paralyzes me and I won't grow. Vida, and a person has to understand. And this is where, Rabbeinu, we're going to read the entire Torah of this Torah, even though this part is much harder to try and holds cup on. Vida, after saying all of this, after saying all of the avodas that Rebbe Nachman is giving this beautiful, beautiful letter of chizuk to each and every one of us, to each and every neshama. Vida, a person has to know sheyesh ilan, there is a tree in the world, in Metzias, a ruchniistic, a tree, shegedelim alav elim, that there are leaves that grow on this tree, shekol ila tzarech liyos gadol meya shanim, that each and every one of these leaves need to grow for 100 years, v'hu nimsa b'pardesim shel hasarim, and that these types of trees, these trees that take so much time to grow and to develop, they're found in the courtyards of the royalty. They're found in the courtyards of the rich. And they refer to it as the 100-year tree. Umistama kishagadol meyasharim. And lechora, seemingly, when a person is watching a tree like this grow over 100 years, bevadar over alav masha over, it has gone through all of its experiences in those 100 years, and it's only at the end, at the end of 100 years, hu yoreh b'kol gadol kamol kanei sreifa shekorin or matya v'havein hanim shel hazeh, and it's only at the end of the development of this tree that it's able to grow. And this is the mashal to the avodah. If we look at any of the avodah in the first 99.9 years of the individual's experience on avodas Hashem, nothing appears, and it's only at that last point that it's going to be revealed. And Chalila for a person to deny the spiritual value of our avoda simply because we don't feel anything. Feeling something has nothing to do with us. It's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If Hashem wants me to feel something in avodas Hashem, then I'll feel something. But that's not the tachlis. Adrab, the tachlis is to kill off the feeling and to go straight to the kedusha. Ro'i leilech ima shene'emar. And it's right to work. How do I do this? What's a practical eitzah to do this? Zok Rebbe Nachman, it is important to walk around, to live with, to incorporate into your knowledge Torah Reish Pei Beis, which will learn Azamra Lelekim Ba'oidi, that the only thing that I need to look at in existence, in people, places, things, any moment, is the positive points of light that exist therein, in spite of the fact that they might be surrounded by and covered over by a million layers of concealment. I must stubbornly search for the Nekuda Tova in myself, in others, everywhere. That's the only thing a person can do. The Hainu Levakesh, to search for, lechapes, and to search out, limtsoa ba'atzmo, eze schus, the eze nekuda tova. A person has to uncover a little bit of a schus within them, some irreducible point of goodness, no matter how small it is. Ubazeh ha'ma'at tov shemotza ba'atzmo. And with this very little bit that contains the all, because when it comes to holiness, even the most little bit contains everything. Yismach v'yachazik atzmo, a person will draw joy into their lives and they'll be able to strengthen themselves, and from that little bit will grow another little bit and another little bit until it's revealed to have been the biggest expression of infinitude imaginable. V'al yaniachas makomo, a person simply has to make sure they don't give up or surrender their standing. Even if a person falls into what they have fallen into. Rebbe Nachman is not saying this sin or this issue or that issue. Each person knows where they fall. Each person knows their subjective struggle. When a person falls into the places that they've fallen, Rahman al-Itzlan, Hashem should protect us. Afal pike, nevertheless, even though it appears that I'm stuck there, nevertheless, I must strengthen myself with a little bit of the little bit, meaning when that little bit disappears, I have to uncover another little bit within that little bit that disappeared to ensure that I find that goodness within myself that enables me to push forward. Take these nekudos tovos, these small points, and allow them to become the bridge that brings me back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no escaping HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're always going to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mamela, we have to pick ourselves up quicker than fast. It's no longer time to wallow in the sadness and the despondency. A person has to get up again. A person has to clean off their clothes, do what they need to do, and they have to say, I'm done. I'm running directly up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As Rabbeinu says in Chayei Moharan, that I'm at a point where even if I fell to the deepest places imaginable, I can be in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as I was a moment before the fall, a moment after the fall. Because in truth, everything happens rapidly. Everything is immediate. A person can flick their eyes upwards and they could be attached to the Or Ein Sof Kavyachol in a way, even if they're pulling themselves out of the darkest place in their life with the secret of Emunah. All of the concealment through the secret of Tshuva Me'av is going to have been revealed to have been nothing other than the process in which I'm uncovering my connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh did. Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, the great grandfather of Rabbeinu, the Baal Shem Tov. This is what he did al Hayam on that Shvi Shal Pesach when he lost everything, when they took all of his moichin away from him, when they made it seem that he couldn't remember anything. Ukeshitu HaBaldavar, and the Baldavar came to try and make him give up. And nevertheless, he was able to uncover the aleph, the beis, those small nekudos that drew out the nekudos tovos. And from here, we'll begin to see just a little bit of how intensely we need to strengthen ourselves and how intensely we have to ensure that we don't lose hope in ourselves. Chas v'shalom, afim yeh ma sheyeh. Even if whatever it is, I still have to pick myself up. There is nothing that blocks me from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nothing that blocks me from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Neskala at every moment, at every fabric of a moment in existence. The main way to do this is perpetual joy, demanding joy. Joy is a mindset. Joy is a framework of recognizing I will never have everything that I want, and therefore I must act as if I have what I need and work from that place. The tamimus and the pshitus that operates from a place of enoughness rather than from absence and lack. That's the secret of Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. I'm okay with what I have, even though I know I'll never have anything but a chilek. I'm okay with it, and that is the Ikr Nekuda. I have to be besimcha, simcha, simcha, simcha. V'yismach atzma b'chol ma sheyuchal. Make myself joyous, like a fool, like an idiot, like an insane person, to dance like a fool in my mind, to clap like a fool in my mind, to ignore negativity, to ignore despondency as if it did not exist, because the moment I pay attention to it is the moment it has a hold on me. I said recently that Rebbe Nachman took silliness very, very seriously because life is far too serious to take seriously. It's about laugh, 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 fall apart, breaking down the klipa by not taking ourselves seriously. Because if I take myself seriously, then I'm stuck in Yom Kippur. I have to take it into the light of Purim, where I know I can laugh my way out of any concealment, because Mashiach Tzidkenu comes about by way of laughter. Afilu al yedei milei d'shtusa, meaning even if I don't feel what I'm doing, even if I'm an insane person whose mind is disconnected from my action, let me force my body, let me compel my body into joy. And again, this is part of the worldview Kavyachol of Rabbeinu when it comes to joy. We'll see many Torahs like this. La'asos atzmo keshota, that a person should make themselves like a meshuga, like a foolish person who has nothing other than what is in front of them. La'asos inyone shtus v'schoik oy kifitzois v'rikudim. Act meshuga. The world is meshuga, and the only way to fight the shigaon of the world is to kampf meshuga mit meshuga, to fight against the sadness with an insane unwillingness to give way to despondency or hopelessness, not allowing it, jumping, dancing around it, but not allowing it until the sadness joins. Kedei lavu b'simcha, in order to come to simcha, shu davar gadol ma'od. The simcha that we're going to encounter, the simcha is not only something that protects me from sadness, but in truth, simcha is the greatest thing that a person can possibly do. Ki b'simcha teitzeu, simcha is geula. Simcha is the light of the hamshacha of Or Ein Sof into our minds, our hearts, and our bodies, and it allows me to break on through to the other side and do a little bit more in the next moment. But this letter, the moyach of Chelek Beis, meaning the Baal Tshuva, there's the first Chelek of Likkutei Moharan, which is the Tzaddik. That starts with the first Torah that says you have to be a Tzaddik, see the good in everything. And then the second volume of Likkutei Moharan is the Torah of the Baal Tshuva, where it starts off with you're much better than a Malach because a Malach can't fall. And it's specifically the moyach of Chelek Beis, the moyach of the Baal Tshuva, which is this Torah. This is the Eitzah for a person who finds themselves perpetually trying to uncover the path of tshuva, because we're on the Gesher Tzar Ma'od anyway. And Rabbeinu here is giving us very, very clear directions as to how to function. And not only that, but he's being autobiographical about it. Not only biographical, but autobiographical. And that should give koyach to each and every yid. Not only that, he brings it back to the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. And the Baal Shem Tov is just bringing it back to David Malka Mashiach. That this is the Inyan of David HaMelech, this is the Inyan of Tehillim, this is the Inyan of Malchus, and we should be able to pick ourselves up over and over and over and over like Mishugaim Lagamri, like animals in the forest who know nothing but what's right in front of them, and we'll be Zochet to a Ksiba V'Sima Tova, and we'll be Zochet to a Gutke Ben Shdior, a year of Simcha, a year of Hisgalus Hadas, a year of connectivity to every single Nekuda Tova, to string together those Nekudos Tovos to uncover the Shir of the Roeh, who has the secret of the Shir of Gulam. Be'ezras Hashem will be Zochet to push ourselves even further than we've been pushing ourselves, and to reveal Mashiach Tzidkenu Be'ezras Hashem.